Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Talking Skritt. I'm your host John, better known as Dale, around Yaxbam, with a fantastic show for you. The community responds to PvP woes and they say, not on my watch. We can use mods, but can yours be getting you in hot water? And is someone trying to take away Guild Wars 2's Fashionista status? And much more. But first, let me introduce you to my fellow host. He is a moderator over at MMO Champion. The delivery man finally got him his part for his computer and is ready to stretch the outer limits of it on next week's Zero to Hero. Say hello to Jim.
Hi everybody. It's been 3 weeks since I've had my own computer at home. I'm really happy to be broadcasting from my desk again. How are you all today? It was the worst debacle in shipping I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, go look back at his past tweets of, what was it, Newegg? So.
Probably not going to be buying parts from them ever again.
Oh snap, you hear that, Newegg? You're ruining our Newegg sponsorship. That's never going to happen. And you can see his stuff over on Twitch and YouTube at MMO Inks. I know he will be mad at me for saying this, but he knows the next expansion is going to lean more political while we face Jormag, with the title being Guild Wars 2 Frost Nixon. He is our Canadian Bacon of Guild Wars 2. Say hello to Inks.
Yeah, Frost Nixon. Nice.
There's no other way I could have worked that title ever in this, so I'm sorry everybody for that.
Oh boy, the next expansion. Rumors on the next expansion. There's something we could talk for many hours about without any actual news.
Yeah, that kind of seems like going forward in any of this PvE content. It's just like, let's just speculate on what little we have. But talking about little and small, these patch notes we got this week, which I guess is a good thing because that means there wasn't a lot of needed changes, whether you think that or not. I mean, that they were able to find a solution for. But interestingly, they added something to the patch notes, but then had to take it out because apparently it's going to be for a future patch. But at least, I guess, the cat's out of the bag. We can kind of talk about it, but it's a nice little just reminder that the active guild member achievement, which can no longer be earned after the retirement of influence, which, if you weren't around for early Guild Wars 2, that's kind of basically was the currency in the guild system. It had, it's been removed, so the achievement tied to that, which was how you earned this currency, was doing activities with your guild or whatnot, events, dungeons, anything. That achievement's going to be moved to the historical achievement category. So, hasn't happened yet, but they kind of threw that out there, and apparently it wasn't in this time, but it's going to happen, it sounds like. So, a little bit
I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened yet. I kind of forgot it was there.
I was going to say, maybe everybody just forgot about it, which was the thing, yeah. They were so happy to get rid of influence, they were just like, okay, it's all gone. And they're like, oh, there's that achievement. But, also, a nice thing, an option called Disable Player Item Chatter has been added to the Sound Options tab. Enabling this option will disable all chatting voiceover from player items such as the replica Jobotron backpack, yay! Tron-themed salvaging tools, and Tron-themed gathering tools. Now, they only list those. I know a lot of people suggested this kind of for that solution, what was it, a couple weeks ago for, the legendaries, what, Quip and the Dreamer?
Dreamer, yeah.
Do these extend to those or no?
Well, this won't.
Okay.
This particular change won't extend to those, but I think it means that there's a possibility that they could make it a separate one that would, cover those.
Oh, that's good. Well, depending on where your stance
Possibly,
yeah.
Right. Nothing.
That was my first thing when I thought of it. I was like, oh, this is like something they've suggested for those things. Does it carry over? So, if you were on that side, unfortunately not. But if you're on Inks' side, you can still annoy people, apparently.
They haven't even confirmed that they will change the sounds for Quip or Dreamer. It's just something that they wanted community input on because it has been a complaint in the past. Mm-hmm. So people actually this past week were telling me that some people find the Predator a bit annoying as well. And I know that the SAB horns, as well as a few other war horns in the game, also make sounds. Whether people find those annoying or not, I don't know. It's a very personalized thing whether those sounds annoy you or not.
Yeah, it's a very slippery slope where it's like, if these sounds annoy you, what about these sounds, and what about these? Then you're just playing with no music or sound on.
And it's very difficult too, right? Because if, let's say you do add a slider that will reduce the sound of or mute the sound of weapons. Let's say all weapons, if you want them to, right? If they make a funny sound. But then that means that, okay, I don't want to hear the Quip or Dreamer, but I do want to hear my SAB pistol that goes pew, 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 right? So yeah, I don't know. That is my preferred solution, but I don't know that that's a solution that everybody would like. And it really does depend on which weapons do you group into that. Is this just for the Dreamer and Quip, or do you start grouping other weapons into something like that as well?
My problem with people complaining about Predator is, like, I don't often see people use Predator.
Well, rifle is one of those weapons that is just underutilized in the entirety of the game. So I think that's one of the reasons for that, right? But think about the possibility of one of the new elite specializations getting rifle, which I really hope one of them gets it, because short bow and rifle are two weapons that I think need to be spread out more within the game. Like, they're just underutilized weapons in general, especially rifle.
It'd be really cool if Warriors got rifle.
Warriors have rifle.
Someone's not a fan of rifle warrior.
Yeah, but it would be nice if it was better. But yeah, so I guess that's why you don't really see it, because it's underutilized, right?
Well, I think one of the bigger mistakes with a rifle is the fact that it's on of one of the two classes that can use it more often than not is using kits. So
well, that as well. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really don't get to see the weapon of an engineer. I mean, I rarely ever actually transmute. Like, I don't reskin my weapons on my engineer because I don't ever see them.
Because you're not going to see them anyway. Yeah, that's a downside.
Yeah. They did do a bug fix to the Bastion of the Penitent, the Samarog and Deimos. Let's go with that. Oh, encounter. I'm gonna call him Deimos.
Yep. What was that? I lost my tab.
Yeah, but Samarog has been bugged for a while. Demos, or however you want to say his name, has also had some problems. Particularly the Demos encounter is interesting because one of the players becomes they call them the hands kiter, because there's an ability, which is what was partially fixed, in that the furthest player away from the boss, the hands will spawn on, and you need to move around and avoid them and not die from them and so forth. Otherwise, the hands go all over the place and it's a mess. So you want to kite the hands away from the boss in order to control them. The problem was, what could happen is the Eye of Janthier will choose a player. And that player and anyone standing in that player's green circle will be teleported into his demon realm. Well, if the hand kiter gets chosen, which was rare, but it could happen, then your hand kiter suddenly goes away and the hands start popping up in places you don't want them to, which means you need to make a very quick adjustment for a character that might not be set up to deal with those hands, you know.
So that's what this soul feast thing is. Like, that's the debuff the person who gets them attracted to them, right?
Right.
Okay.
So what this what this fix did was it allowed that it allowed the hands kiter to not be chosen, which didn't make the fight more difficult. It just made the fight annoying. It's not really like a difficulty nerf. It's more of an annoying fix.
I mean, it's clearly something they didn't want to happen. I mean,
well, it wasn't
like you said, it rarely happened.
It wasn't supposed to happen in the first place, but it would happen on occasion, so it was annoying when this thing that's not supposed to happen would happen.
I mean, you gotta love
so
RNG.
anyway-
that happens,
so
but it doesn't
anyway,
give you the item you want.
Right. So anyway, they fixed that. So there you go. There's a fix to that particular one.
Also, structured player versus player default builds have been adjusted, so that's nice if you're just popping in and trying to dip your toe into PvP and don't know any clue about your builds. They've adjusted them to be kind of, I guess, more at least competitive or get you in the right direction instead of being outdated.
I haven't had a chance to look at the default builds, but from what I've heard is they are much closer to what the largest meta selection is for the classes. And I think I might have misheard this or misread this somewhere. I think one is a base profession build and one is a Heart of Thorns profession build.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have an option there if you don't have Heart of Thorns as a default build.
Yeah, this is really a feather in ArenaNet's cap, and I hope that they're able to, with every season, it's important that they keep up to date on these things. Now, this was sort of added towards the end of the season. It would have been much nicer if after maybe the first week or two they update these. But regardless, they've updated them, which is the first time we've seen these updated since they were added. And it's nice to see that these default builds will be adjusted at least a little bit over time to keep current on, you know, what works, what doesn't work. Because if you're a new player into structured PvP, or if you're just a player who hops in for a couple occasional games, you might not have a class set up. Let's say it's, you know, Thief daily. Well, maybe you don't play Thief all the time, but you want to pop in and, you know, play the Thief that day to do your daily. It's nice that you can just pop on this default build and be fairly competitive, you know. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see these default builds have been adjusted, and that they're doing a pretty good job of keeping them close to what is meta or close to what is competitive, let's say.
It kind of reminds me of some of the stuff from Guild Wars 1, because I remember when you were creating a PvP character in Guild Wars 1, there were builds you could choose from that were actually not, I don't want to say curated by the community, but they were popular builds in the community. And
Right.
like they'd almost source it on the page and you'd see the guild that made it popular in competitions and stuff. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that expanded on. I'd like to see the UI made more apparent. So that would be nice. I mean, heck, we could even end up with something that's like meta battle itself could go away and it would end up just living inside Guild Wars 2. Not that I'm saying I want meta battle to go away. It's a really nice resource for like default stuff, but it, like, just the people who work there were like, we could do that inside the game. ArenaNet would just have to be like, hey guys, want to work part-time for us?
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of always what I constantly have said. That's like, you want to keep people in the game. I mean, the more you have them going out, because not everybody has two monitors where they can just easily slide out, or you know, maybe their computer's not good enough to minimize. They'll have to, like, you know, venture out there, you know, close out totally of the game. Well, that's, you know, increasing their likelihood that they might not log back in. So, you know, definitely smart on them to add it. But any other thoughts on the patch notes? Not too much, but, you know, some nice
minor quality of life things, which is always nice, and some bug fixes, which are always needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are they making the raids too easy now?
No, I mean, these are not making the raids easier. This is fixing things that don't work in the raid as they're supposed to. So
you just have to fight 5 more people.
I mean, Samurag is known to be fairly buggy, and Demo's having some issues as well. So it's nice to see that those things are getting addressed.
Actually, why am I poking that can of worms? We have so many topics that I couldn't help myself. I've been gone for 2 weeks. I couldn't help myself to just try to.
Just had to stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the fun in not doing that? This past week, MassivelyOP had sat down with Maclaine. You may know him as one of the people that kind of like headed the music of Heart of Thorns, along with Lena Chappelle. But they interviewed Maclaine, and I mean, any things that you guys pulled away, I like. When I kind of read through it, I would say it was similar to way back when they did their guild chat version with both Lena Chappelle and Maclaine. But I know a lot of people out there prefer to read things over, viewing them, which I guess if you were watching this, you probably aren't one of those people, possibly. I don't know. But it was kind of like a more written version of that, and it was actually nice to see. Same recommendations as guild chat of if you're like the behind the scenes stuff, or if you want to be in that part of the industry, definitely interesting insight, and also their opinion on their favorite, possibly their favorite thing. But anything you guys picked out that?
Well, I've seen a couple of interviews with Maclaine previous to this one, so a lot of that information seems to be, if you follow closely, it's stuff that you may have already known about. But it's a nice interview. It has a lot of, pieces of detail for those who care about the production of music and, how this stuff gets made. I hope that, I think Maclaine, from what I understand, doesn't work directly for ArenaNet anymore. He's sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Freelance, in a way. And Lena has moved on, unfortunately, to other things as well. That doesn't mean they couldn't come back and work at ArenaNet for composing more music. Like Maclaine still is, from what I understand, on the payroll, but he's not solely at ArenaNet doing ArenaNet things, right? He works in other games and other projects and so forth.
I'm actually noticing a problem that I have with this article.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
It's not on the front page of Guild Wars 2's website.
Yeah,
This interview happened on the 19th. They don't even have an external link pointing at it.
Do they really do that for any of them? I mean,
I always, every time this ever comes up, I think that's a problem because somebody else is talking about your game. I mean, that would be linking to that article, putting a redirect, say, hey, one of our people talked about our game over here on this article on this website. You're increasing views of that website. You are a central source of news for your own game, even if you're linking externally. You're increasing your relationship with the person who did the interview because you're providing them with ad revenue because you're linking to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're sending traffic their way, which I agree. Maybe hopefully, going on that topic, hopefully that's their next step, because it seems like they've somewhat stepped up with their weekly stream schedule. Maybe try to do that with these this article came out about us, or it's.
Someone has said, Kate is saying that she thinks they retweeted it. Did they post it on? I don't do the Facebook thing, but did they post it on Facebook? I would think personally, and this is definitely a discussion worth having as well. I think where they don't do this often enough, but apparently this one was retweeted, which is a good sign. But they should definitely tweet these things out as well as post them on Facebook to sort of draw attention to it. I don't know about a link on the main page, maybe, I don't know, but they should definitely Facebook and retweet these things.
They did retweet it.
Kate is saying they retweeted it, which is nice, but I do think you should use as much social media as possible to draw attention to these interviews and things like that.
I mean, that's why I bring it up. They did not Facebook this. In fact, their latest Facebook update was bag slot expansions on the 14th.
Which, if you're watching this, you can't get. I mean, you can still get the bag slot expansions, but not on a.
They're not on sale anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see linking on your main website as an issue. Maybe if it was a subset of the news section, like you
or
make
like
the
a lot of
news-
companies. I mean, maybe not game companies. Usually have a media section where people have talked
Right.
about their game, which is usually a separate thing. So I mean, that might be a possibility, but
it's one of those things where it's like you got to manage all of your streams of information to your audience. And honestly, when I think I want news about Guild Wars 2, I think guildwars2.com. Like if I want to know stuff that is straight from the developers, like if I want official news posts of that, I go there. And then, like, when they were doing the Heart of Thorns stuff, they were linking some of those articles out when it was like the exclusive information interviews. So I guess that's probably
I don't know. I guess it depends on
the
type of content it is. Like an interview, I could see them personally for myself. I could see them posting an interview on the website. If there's no other news or something that day, then I could see them posting like a link to a third-party website that isn't like an interview. As far as other content and stuff, that is simply a Twitter, Facebook kind of thing. But yeah, maybe for interviews, I could see that.
And I mean, there are other places that have like the little Twitter widget that shows what an individual account has done. I've seen that. Like integrated on the site, just have like, this is the Guild Wars 2 Twitter feed, and like this is the things we have talked about, as just kind of a stream of information elsewhere. I know Kate said in chat their Facebook page isn't really as active as their Twitter feed, which I get. Twitter is a lot more easier to stay active because you've got 140 characters to work with. So you can throw out quick blurbs and stuff there a lot easier. And Facebook, you kind of have to put a lot more thought into it, I would think, to make it really successful. And yeah, I guess Maclaine not being a full-time employee might be a reason it's not there, but I don't know.
Yeah, like the article says he is working on stuff for Living Story Season 3. Like, I don't think ArenaNet's going away outside of him or away from him, but he's technically freelance. I honestly, I don't know what the relationship there is, but I think technically he's sort of freelance / full-time, part-time. I don't know. It's a bit of it's a weird thing, right? But anyway, there is a discussion to be had, I think, that I had last Sunday with a Twitch streamer, where they were talking about how they don't feel like ArenaNet, at least on Twitter, they don't seem to advertise their content creators quite as much as maybe they should, or as often as they used to. Now that may or may not be a good thing, depending on how you feel about that sort of spam or that sort of interactivity, I suppose. But you don't see quite as many links to so-and-so streaming Guild Wars 2, unless it's a prearranged thing, you know?
Right.
You do see videos once in a while. I've been the recipient of this. But you do see videos once in a while where they'll say, hey, go watch so-and-so's video, right? But it doesn't happen as often as it used to. And I don't know if that's just a change of direction, or if they don't want to spam people, or I don't quite know what the whole thing with that is. Maybe there's something to the thought process of they should vet the video or article first and then decide whether they want to promote that or not promote that, because, you know.
Well, I mean, at that point, it starts to get as hectic as like how people are saying, "Oh, my, like in the YouTube space, my thing got flagged." It's like, well, they can't hire someone to just sit there and watch the videos all day. I mean, there's so much content out there. I mean, this is a way smaller business than Google, that's making a game. Like, not all of them are just there to monitor the articles and stuff. It's like,
sure,
that's asking a lot for them to be like, okay, yeah, this has all the clear like notifications of what we need, but yeah, one big pair also brings up a good point that, like, even for them, they've never really done a Facebook, and like Twitter is much more immediate. And yeah, I did notice like like the whole like kind of pushing content creators has kind of gone in like kind of cycles. Like it seems like they have like they come out of the gate real well at first when they try to like relaunch or like kind of redo the thing, and then it kind of like dwindles out. But then also I don't know on their end, maybe there aren't as many content creators, like maybe it fizzles out as well, like kind of like I think what way back
Maybe.
I think everybody talked about with Wooden Potatoes. I know brought it up, you know, why we need an expansion, because that brings like all these people back in that, and like people that haven't seen it, or and kind of like what we talked about in the past with WoW with other MMOs, where yeah, all these people come back and then it fizzles out. Maybe they're also seeing that too. I mean, but yeah, I would like to see them tweet out more.
Maybe I've just been missing it. The only thing I really see retweeted from them are Gemstore sales and the art shows, the different you know, advertising pieces of art that people send to them, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, but maybe I'm just missing their advertisement of other types of content. Like Paris says that they've been retweeting a lot more podcasts. I've just been missing those. I guess I haven't seen them. So that's a good thing. If they're retweeting podcasts more, then that's a big positive. I haven't seen that, but there you go. That's good.
Yeah, and that's sometimes the trouble. Like if you're already following them, it's hard to tell. Like if you're following one of the podcasts, it's, you know, it's hard to tell who retweeted it because you're already following them.
Right, Neko. They tweet about some videos, but like the conversation that I had, and I kind of agreed with the person, was that it's a lot less than it used to be. But it's a perception thing, I guess. So.
I mean, without going too deep into the can of worms, any other thoughts on at least their communication about community stuff, and, you know, kind of like this article? And like I said, links will, if you're watching on YouTube, the links will always be in the description if you want to check out the actual article talking about, you know.
It's a good article. It's a good interview.
Like I said, it's a great alternative to the guild chat version if you just want to kind of read the stuff.
I don't want to talk about communication because that'll get us down around.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why I was trying to phrase it as like, as it pertains to community content, driven content, not everything.
Without getting too much into it, it's interesting to me how polarizing the opinions on that are. Salt. For sure.
But it's interesting talking about community responses and stuff. Unity Gaming organization, and they have now made a PvP community, Jebro, which I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably know. If you're not aware, Jebro, big PvP streamer, was kind of is still a caster for it when there is stuff to cast. That's the caveat. But he opened up the Unity Gaming org Discord server for people interested in PvP tournaments, and they said the goal is to run monthly EU and NA Guild Wars 2 tournaments for 5v5. This organization is being set up with the community in mind in terms of participation, organization, and production, and they have a crew forming, and they want anyone who is interested. So, and it's like I said, we'll put the forum link in there, and you know, it says upon joining, you will be able to find Jebro and other and others to see if you want to be, you know, an admin, writer, featured YouTuber, a mod, you know, basically anything you think you can bring to the table. So.
Yeah, it's you know, I don't think it's any secret, depending on, you know, the past couple of shows we've had, certainly, and in the community, it's no secret that I think the tone of structured PvP and the direction of structured PvP is changing, even if we hadn't, even if that hasn't been directly communicated with us. And Jebro wants to organize people to keep PvP tournaments alive and well. And, you know, the prizes might not be huge or gigantic. Time will tell how big this can grow. It's a lot of work that goes into something like this, for sure. And I hope that I hope they find success. I hope they're successful.
Mm-hmm.
I joined it. I'm in the server and I get pinged from it a lot because people talk. Apparently, just read through it, and apparently 2 people who were not quite friends at one point in time just were like, "Hey, you're here. Maybe we should, be nice
fight
to
the
each other."
death.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
No,
Okay.
no, all water under the bridge kind of talk is like, everything got resolved nicely, which was really, really cool to see, because
That's not
that's
PvP.
I know, that was my sarcastic comment. It's like reasonable, logical discussion in my PvP community? Blasphemy.
There's
But-
only one way to settle this.
1v1 me, bro.
Mail them each like a sword. There's only one way to settle this.
But I kind of like how that speaks to one of the things that I think apparently somebody did something wrong over near in Inks' neighborhood. Something that speaks, I think it was something that either Mo or Colin said when they did the big announcement at, what was it, PAX South for Heart of Thorns, with the friendliest MMO community comment. I play a lot of PvP games. I dabbled a little bit in World of Warcraft PvP. I played League of Legends. I've played Dota. I've played Dota 2. Guild Wars 2's PvP community has that salt, has that rage, but I've seen a lot of really nice conversations in map chat in Heart of the Mist too, which I've never seen before. Generally speaking, in a MOBA like League of Legends, people don't use all chat unless they're flaming someone on their team or on the enemy team. Like I very rarely see compliments made in lower elos, which admittedly is where I probably am, and whatevs. I don't have a lot of time to play that game, so I don't get much better at it than what I have, but I have fun with it. It's just really nice to see people able to be nice to each other, and maybe to at least just agree to not, make all the sarcastic faces you want. It's kind of nice to see that on the internet, because there's a lot of negativity on the internet, especially in gaming, and it's just really nice to see,
especially in
positive
competitive gaming.
Yes, especially, and that's one of the things that people have always said, that that they bring up, like League of Legends. Oh, it's so toxic, I'll never play that game. Well, you're stuck for 30 to 45 minutes in a standard game with 9 other people. So when you run into that asshole, that's going to stick with you a little bit longer than if you run into someone like that in Guild Wars 2, because it's a 15-minute match at most. So, and then to the point that Deo was making, that PvP is changing without any real communication or input from the player base. What was it, Deo? You said that they were going for the esport feel, but
we were talking about it before the show, yeah.
Yeah, before
I think
started.
I think that's always the problem is, like, and I think you were saying about last week, someone was saying PvP was dead. It's like, I think esport is dead because companies like to push that. I mean, I'm not bashing ArenaNet. Every company tries to do it because that's where the money is. But I think it's definitely they're putting the horse before the car, or no, the cart before the horse. There we go. Horse before the car would just be okay. But they need to have a good structure of PvP and a good environment, or a good player base, which now that hopefully this inspires them, maybe making game modes that maybe intrigue more people that maybe aren't a PvP player. I was talking about, or before the show, playing Master X Master, and this past week I was talking with the devs while they were streaming and saying, kudos to you. This is the only MOBA I have probably stuck with and I have been enjoying, but that's because I'm coming from as a PvE player playing it and then going, I'll hop in a PvP match. That's more. Jim can vouch for it. That's probably more than I've played for League of Legends, even though they've been trying to get me for.
That's you with PvP. Like,
yeah, okay, that's a good point.
If a game can get you to consider PvP, I'd say it's done a really good job. And
Yeah,
honestly, that was me with Guild Wars 2. I like Guild Wars 2 mechanically, so I thought, oh, heck, I'll hop into PvP just for the hell of it. Especially once the dailies hit, and I'm like, okay, this is easy dailies. But there's that. And it was... I think it's more when the games aren't super overwhelming, so you can actually focus on being mechanically good. Like World of Warcraft, I played mostly in Wrath into Cataclysm, and there were so many skills that you needed. There were so many cooldowns, so many targeting macros or help macros or oh shit macros, and it was kind of overwhelming going into a point where you basically had to memorize your entire keyboard's layout just to know what buttons you needed to hit. So something like Guild Wars 2, I have whatever my class's function ability is. I have my weapon swap. I have my 5 weapon skills. I have my heal, 3 utilities, elite. So much less to worry about and keep track of. That makes it easier for me to actually look at what's going on around me. So, but it's one of those things with going back to PvP changing that I brought up is, again, communication. If they would have said we're stepping back from the esports push in order to make sure we have a solid system, and then we'll push back forward again, I'm fairly certain we wouldn't have as much of a visceral reaction to GW2's ESL's GW2 division closing, to like a lack of, it's this absolute lack of communication from ArenaNet as a whole. And again, I've said it multiple times previously. I know it's kind of hard to like say a thing as a developer, like as an official source, and then people make interpretations off of that. So you kind of have to do the lawyer speak and say, well, we didn't technically say that, whenever somebody says, I thought you were going to do this. And I want a high level direction. Like we're talking about PvP. The only direction we have right now is unity. Like I haven't seen any other groups organizing, unless I've just completely missed it. But it's great that there's a player base that can organize and do that, but curate your own game, ArenaNet. Help curate your own game. Somehow.
It's interesting because I think we are going to get that communication discussion from ArenaNet eventually, but not until they are ready to announce their next direction for structured PvP, which I think is going to be automated tournaments. But as we've seen from the current way that they communicate, they won't talk about that until that's ready to launch, or unless that is part of an expansion, which is highly possible. The problem with that is not necessarily the change in direction. The change in direction could be the way to go. It could be good. It could be even favored by the community, perhaps. But what you did was you had Pro League and you had Worlds, which probably didn't get as many viewers as they would have liked it to have gotten, but it was still on a positive. You had a couple of structured PvP seasons that went over fairly well. Season 5, for example, the one before this, was in a pretty good place, and mostly because of an overly rewarding system. But unfortunately what happened was the lack of communication, because they're not ready to talk about the new direction. And I do believe that they made a direction decision months ago, a while ago. They just didn't communicate it to the pro players. They haven't communicated it to the community. and they won't communicate it until they're ready to talk about whichever feature or whatever feature is going to come in and actually change that direction, which I think is a mistake. I understand from ArenaNet's perspective why they want to wait to talk about something that is actually solid and a reality rather than something they want to happen but might not be able to happen. But if you have pro players or if you have a pro scene, those players need to know the direction of the game mode that they are pros in, because their sponsors, for those of them who are sponsored, need them to play games. They're not going to sponsor them if they're not playing games. And so they are basically forced to move over to another competitive game if they want to keep that sponsorship, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
On top of this, you have a very successful season, or actually I would say seasons 4 and 5 were generally fairly popular. Season 5 being way more popular than 4, obviously, because of the rewards, which the rewards did need to be nerfed, but then they went and double nerfed it. Like, they nerfed it so hard that it was super unappealing rather than being mediocrely appealing. And it's just like PvP, I felt like within the last year, or year and a half, I would say, was going in a positive direction in my mind. I thought it was going in a good direction, a good way. I felt like the player population was gradually increasing, even though Guild Wars 2, in my opinion, is not a game that's very easy or necessarily fun to spectate, which is a big problem for esports. But I felt like it was still going in a positive direction. And then because of stagnation of communication with the pro players, they just start to leave, which looks bad for that PvP community. And then you have a season where you double nerf the rewards. Now in Season 7, if they take some of those nerfs away, and if they don't leave the meta stale, which it currently is, then you could see a resurgence again of structured PvP. Even more so if ArenaNet really communicates what they want the direction or where they plan to take structured PvP. And I don't know that we'll see that by Season 7, probably Season 8, to be quite honest, but sooner rather than later, I think, is going to help them out in that arena, in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly,
Yeah, I think
the whole time I was trying to word it so, because I was like, man, we are so close to this whole, like, how Mo handles it and how, like, because, yeah, it's very much that mentality of they're probably going to only talk about it once they have it, like, you know, finalized, which has been very much the Mo way about it, whereas Collins was, you know, let's start talking about it. It may or may not happen, which that had its own, you know, problems with the internet, but, you know, it's...
Well, the problem is it's in a state of free fall where
Mhm.
they've kind of pulled out support for it, and we're basically just, here, walk into this fog. Can't see shit. You have no idea where you're going. You could be walking into a wall. You could be walking off a cliff. One is annoying, painful. The other is much worse so. So it's one of those things where it's like you not knowing is one of those things where you kind of want to stop walking. So in that case, you've got people who get into PvP and are like, oh, I'm really interested in this. And then as they get more into it, they learn more about the community and they realize that nobody knows what's going on. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I don't want to continue knowing, I don't want to continue playing, because what if what I love about this gets changed? What if it just gets completely shut down for whatever reason? So that's going to be...
Yeah, short and simple is like
problem.
they really don't even see a light at the end of the tunnel. Like you said, it's basically fog. It's all like they don't know where it's going. So yeah.
It gets even worse when you start looking at the matchmaking system, which they've made many changes over the last 2 years to matchmaking. And the matchmaking system has the ability to work fairly well when there is a healthy population. When there isn't a healthy population like we've seen in Season 6, then the matchmaking gets really terrible. And it just sort of falls apart, which then those who are playing PvP or trying out PvP are going to have a generally bad experience because of the matchmaking. There's just not enough of a healthy player environment to sort the matchmaking out properly. It's problem on top of problem on top of problem, and it's damaging.
I will admit I didn't experience a massive shift in my queue times, maybe a few extra seconds, but that could have changed in the past 3 weeks with me not being able to play PvP. So I heard people saying queue time sucked at the start of Season 6. That could have been filtered all the way down into silver, where I am by now.
Well, it's not even so much just the time that you spend in queue, but it's who you end up getting matched up against, or with, for that matter, where you start getting matched with players who are either too low, should be generally too low to be ranked with you, or players who are too high to be ranked with you, both of which are going to give you a poor player experience. But there's really not a lot you can do if the community is not in a healthy place. Like Amolag is saying, you can tweak all the numbers you want, you can change matchmaking as many times as you want. If there's just like not enough players in a given category, I mean, there's really nothing you can do about that. They have to fix the other things so that the population becomes healthy again, and matchmaking will adjust itself. But, you know, like I said, it's compounded problems. You have 2 or 3 problems that are already compounded on top of each other, which then make the matchmaking even worse. It just turns players off at every turn of, you know, at every turn. And it's a shame, because I don't want PvP to be terrible. I don't want it to be an unhealthy community. But just all of these things that we've talked about so far on the show today, they compound on top of each other. And, you know, it's not that they can't dig themselves out of this. I know that you were saying, like, there's no light, that some players perceive that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to know that if esports is not the direction they're pushing anymore, if pro leagues and worlds and stuff like that is not the direction they're pushing, then what is the direction that you're pushing? And you need to find a proper balance between where the rewards should be, where the carrot on the stick should be. It shouldn't be so good as in Season 5, but it certainly shouldn't be so bad as in Season 6, because players are just not interested in that. And on top of that, you need to have an evolving metagame. You can't just leave it the same. Players want to experience something that is slightly different. And that doesn't mean making a class flavor of the month or flavor of the season, but generally changing balance overall so that things change. That's a different environment, so that you can experience a different side of the class that you didn't previously.
That was actually one of the points that I was kind of surprised by when we talked about the pre-Season 6 balance patch. That they didn't really do anything.
Right, yeah. From
one of the things
from last season, and it's not even that the balance is that bad, I don't think. That's just my opinion.
No. And
from last season to this season, really nothing has changed. And so,
like, one of the big things we were talking about is no internal cooldown on pulmonary impact for thieves. Revenants still kind of are in that feast or famine situation. I think everyone else has fairly decent representation class-wise. I know they keep trying to make power necro a thing, and I don't know if that's really stuck yet, or at least make it viable. But there are places that I talked about it last week. I don't want them to buff just to buff. I don't want them to change the meta just to change the meta. But we've talked about it before. Revenants are kind of in a bad spot. Thieves are pretty much relegated to do one job. Like, you can't be a fight thief because you do so much better backcapping, 1v1ing, skirmishing, and, you know, your dagger pistol and short bow, because that's the best. That is the thing that you need to do because that's what you're good at. and there's no real other option. So Thief and Revenant are two professions that really kind of need help in PvP, specifically. Like, they're really good in their windows, but I think they're too niche for the way things work in the game.
Before we move on, I will say, and this goes beyond structured PvP, the entirety of the game in general needs to see balancing more often than it does. It just isn't balanced often enough. The balancing, some players might be surprised to find out how powerful balancing the game more often can be. How vast that can change an experience for a player, especially when maybe there's not a whole lot of new content to play, but if you can play the same content you've been playing from a different perspective or just a different setup, then it can really change your experience. And I don't think the game is balanced nearly often enough.
And I mean, with our next little topic here, I think we could even, I'd be curious to know if it could apply to what we're talking about right now. But let's talk about this past week on Reddit. Someone actually kind of gave like their own like personal experience on it, and they actually said, you know, War v World was actually fun. Wait, hold on. Yeah, yeah, that's what they said. It was actually fun. They kind of said that they were a longtime player, you know, early on, and kind of stopped after a while. But they basically just said, try to tell people that, you know, not to be afraid of War v World. That, you know, the game mode is not as dead as others have claimed it to be, and you know, we have kind of said that a lot of times War v World has been hurting. Like, it's but you know, and you know, a lot of things that they bring up, it is on the right tracks to be something great. And you know, I think we've kind of said that, you know, here and there, that there are a lot of cool elements to it. It's just, it definitely needs to get love. Like, it needs to have some kind of some devs to look at it, which it feels like it doesn't, which I think that's where people are thinking it feels dead. Population wise, yeah, there's people running around. That could be due to the server linking, not merge, linking. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Yeah. No, dead game mode.
It's interesting because Mighty Teapot and his crew have recently just started to World vs. World more often, and they're having a really good time. And this comes back a lot of the times to the fact that for some of them, it's a brand new experience. For others, they're probably a lot like me, where they played World vs. World at launch and haven't played it in a couple of years, at least not in any kind of serious manner. There have been changes to World vs. World, but lots of small little changes, and they're still working on scoring, which is rather important to the game mode. But everything happens very slowly, in my opinion. I have no idea how many devs work on World vs. World, but it doesn't feel like it's a very large team.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I agree that like they're like what this person's saying is, you know, it is different. It is in a good direction, but kind of like what you're saying, in such a slow pace, because a lot of this stuff was ideally supposed to be for HOTS release at the same time, like this overhaul of War v World. And then they were like, well, it's a lot bigger of an undertaking, like things have changed, so we kind of had to, you know, push it back. And everybody's like, okay, well, at least you're working on it. And now it's just so slow. I mean,
it's just incredibly, yeah. I mean, World vs. World is so incredibly complicated, but to develop for. And I think that's true for any Realm vs. Realm game. It's even more true for any Realm vs. Realm game that has other game modes other than the Realm vs. Realm. But part of the dissatisfaction is that at one point we were promised, or promise is not the right word. At one point we were teased that there was going to be a major World vs. World overhaul, and then that just never happened. It just never came. we got lots of little changes, and we got lots of polls to vote in, and which direction do you want it to go, and all that stuff is fantastic. But we were supposed to get this giant overhaul, and then that giant overhaul somehow changed into maintenance mode, for lack of a better word, where they're going to put polls out, and they're going to, you know, which direction do you want us to go in? Okay, you want us to work on scoring? Okay, well, scoring is going to take us a really long time, guys, but that's what we're working on right now. And they've been working on that for a while now. And they did say it would take a long time, so they were clear about that, but, you know.
And Carnifex actually brings up a point that I think we talked about when Heart of Thorns was first teased, is that we didn't want ArenaNet to hit here's the expansion, now everything goes maintenance until the next expansion. The primary issue I have is that's kind of what it feels like we're doing, is we've hit just this kind of lull. The entire game is kind of in this fog where at the very least the only real light we've gotten is in PvE, where it's like, next chapter's coming out and it might be, you know, closer to the 3-month cadence, guys, and that's it. Like, that's the only real shred of news we've gotten aside from Gemstore updates over the past, how long? Since SAB released? I just, or not SAB released, since the Last Living Story update.
Well, it's almost 3 months.
Yeah, like that's been an almost 3 months thing, with the only real communication we've gotten is we're close on the next chapter.
Delayed.
It's going to be a little bit longer than the other ones.
I don't know. We knew that these stories, unfortunately, this is just the state of the game now. We know that these stories, that these PvE releases are going to be 2 to 3 months apart. And for a long time now, ArenaNet's been pretty good at more or less 2-month releases.
Closer to 2 months.
Yeah, this one is pushed a little further. We had SAB as filler in the meantime. Unfortunately, depending on whether you're a new player or not, you know, maybe SAB excited you, maybe it didn't. I mean, it's always going to be that way with festivals anyway. You have a PvP season, unfortunately, that is lackluster this time around. And, you know, it's just an unfortunate series of events, I guess, in a landscape that looks like releases every 2 to 3 months. Now, World vs. World operate, and PvP to some extent, I guess, operates on its own timetable, but the timetable is so slow for World vs. World that it's never that impactful, right? Like, you wait 2 to 3 months, but nothing has really changed in World vs. World. Minor little tweaks, you know, that most players are not going to, they're not going to see it. And as far as this idea of adding PvP leagues or seasons or whatever you want to call it, World vs. World, not PvP, excuse me, which I think will do really well for the game. They have in the past. You can't really add those things in, and Arena has more or less said as much, until you fix the core problems that exist with World vs. World. The problem is we've entered this maintenance mode where they make small tweaks based on community polls before the game mode was actually fixed. And just my opinion, but you can't really enter a maintenance mode until you've done the work necessary to then just maintain it. Maintaining a broken or incomplete mode is just, it's a bit silly. It's a bit, it lacks a bit of, I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. And because it feels like the team that works on a World vs. World is a bit small, these things take a lot of time to roll out. And it means that the game mode isn't really changing. It's continuing to stagnate. It was stagnant even before Heart of Thorns, in my opinion. Some will disagree with that, and that's fine. But, and then you have compounded problems, once again, on World vs. World about server linking and how players, you know, some players don't like it. I don't know how many people like it, actually. But because the community in World vs. World is a bit shrunken over time, or definitely has shrunk over time. They now link these worlds, which comes with all of its own drama.
Mm-hmm. I mean, kind of you saying how, Mighty Teapot was starting to do World v. World more. It's like, and that's the thing. I'd like to do that. Like, I'd like to do that. Like when we had, did GBN. Like, I think Jim actually started playing World v. World when we started like goofing around in there, and it's like that's the one thing. Like, kind of we've talked about in the past. It's like finding a way for guildies that aren't on the same server, since that's the only thing that matters in World v. World, to kind of play together without ideally exploiting it for gains, which that's where the hard part is. So I hopefully whatever's in the works, maybe that's in there somewhere of like this last bastion of server identity. Who cares? We're all Tyrians in the end. Except for humans, they came from space.
I hope that whatever their plans are, first of all, I hope that when we get a new expansion, that there's some meaningful changes made to World vs. World within that expansion. But whatever they're going to do, they really need to step on the gas a little bit and get it done, because when games like Camelot Unchained, what's the other one?
Yeah, I know
there's two or three of them in development right now. But there's specific games where Realm vs. Realm, World vs. World, whatever you want to call it, is their focus. And those games are going to eat up some of the population that exists. It's going to happen anyway because it's a brand new game. But if you can really revitalize World vs. World, it's going to be a much smaller hit than it currently would be. If one of those games released tomorrow, it would be, I would think, a pretty major hit.
Mm-hmm. Now, my question overall with like how this person like phrased it, of like kind of coming with a fresh look, like maybe we've all been jaded by it, or it's just been around so long that we've gotten used to it. Do you think that could apply to the PvP setting as well? Like maybe it's a good system, but we've been here from the beginning, and we're like
a good system. Yeah, I mean,
it's a better system than
it's
some of the prior ones.
It's an okay system that needs to see significant changes, that needs to see larger changes than what we've seen. That doesn't mean that it's terrible, or it's unplayable, or it's not fun, because clearly there are people who, like you said, haven't played in a while, are jumping back into it and are having a good time. You can, it depends on your play style, obviously, but people are having fun in there. It's just a matter of personal preference. More people would jump in and try it if reworks were done, if they brought back seasons, if they brought back leagues, or whatever you want to call them, and gave it sort of a jump start, And as long as those other changes, as well as better rewards, are there for World vs. World, then players will stay. They'll continue to play. They'll continue to hop in. But you need to give them a reason to care to do so, and to also have an enjoyable experience. And some of those pieces are missing currently.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. Is maybe we're all jaded, but that's what comes at hand with being there for what, 4.5 years now. I mean, oh boy, we got a spud attack. But any other thoughts on like the World v. World setting without going into this whole lump of communication
issues? That's it. That's my only thought, is that tell us something. Anything.
Yeah. But let us move on. This is kind of, I'm curious of would you guys want to see this feature come into the game eventually? But apparently World of Warcraft, I know people love that game, uh, is apparently in the next patch going to put in something called they're basically like fashion dungeons. I forget what they exactly call them, but as you can kind of see here, basically it puts you in a party of 6, and you have access to the barbershop, which would be, I guess, our makeover kits, and transmog system, which would be kind of our wardrobe. And basically, then it rates people, and you can see there it kind of gives them a theme. Unfortunately, this one gave freestyle, like it was a horrible example. Like I'd like to see like desert themed, or whatever themes they have listed. But basically you guys vote on who's the best, and then you get like a little reward. And I mean, Guild Wars 2 is kind of known for being Fashion Wars 2. Yes, chat saying Trial of Style. That's it. I knew it was something.
Yeah,
like
Trial of Style. It's interesting because guilds do this, right? I certainly Spud Club, which many of them are here currently, is doing something like this, where they have a particular theme and who can best exemplify that theme, right? This is kind of interesting, actually. What is the reward? Special skins, I guess?
At the end, it just showed like a chest where it was like, I think, daily reward or something. So I don't know if it has like generic stuff in it, but I mean, I'm curious of what, yeah, like chat saying, Guild Wars 2 has amazing looking skins. Like it's.
My entire thought to this is I see people do this in cities. Like you'll just be walking through Lion's Arch, Divinity's Reach, anywhere, and you'll see someone who has this amazing look, and you'll stop, you'll take a screenshot, maybe you'll whisper the person and say like, holy crap, I love what you've got going on. And I think, I don't know, I think that's already kind of integrated with Guild Wars 2, that we don't necessarily need a fashion dungeon per se for it. It's
Fashion Week.
Yeah, I mean,
would that be scary if they were like, "Hey
sure.
guys, we're doing dungeons again," and everyone's like, "Yeah, fashion dungeons," and it's like, what?
Yeah, really.
Story mode, fashion dungeon.
It'd be something like the fanciest cat in Divinity's Reach competition. It's just how would you even implement that? Like you'd have to put a voting system in. You'd have to put all other kinds of stuff in. As much as I'd like to see new content in Guild Wars 2, I kind of don't want it to be a throwaway fashion competition. That, and I'm pretty sure there are guilds that have held this, and it's just.
And in WoW, people have done that already. I mean, way back, I think I was part of one in WoW way back, and before I stopped playing. But yeah, like what chat's like bringing up, like, can this be exploited? I don't know if
absolutely.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you can literally go in with a group that you know, or it's like personal queue. I'm not exactly sure how they're, but it is a voting system between the party members. So theoretically, theoretically you can. I guess I saw some people saying like the comment section, like, oh, someone's gonna just go in there and be like, I'm gonna pay 1 gold for, if you vote for me or whatever, and. I don't think I think you still trade cross server, so like mail someone something, so yeah, like it could theoretically be exploitable, but I mean all game modes, no matter what, can be exploited. I mean, I could pay enough people to run me through a raid. I mean,
yeah, I'm not sure what the rewards would be exactly. Like, are we talking about special skins? But then they have problem producing those skins sometimes, and
well, actually, no. Problem solved. Reward is one of the random wardrobe unlocks.
Oh.
That could be pretty good. That could be pretty strong.
I have to look back through chat. Somebody mentioned that we do. Oh, Mr. Greenbone said that we do have a voting system in game with the dungeon paths. I don't know how involved that is, and you've got a point. No, that's a voting system that's already in the game. I don't know if it can support more than a few people clicking on it, because in the dungeon paths it was only 5 people voting on it, so I don't know how the back end is coded. But you've got a point. We do already have a baseline of a voting system. So there's that. And something like that would make it a little more difficult for someone to hack the system or game it, because you figure, you sign up for the competition, you have to be there, and like, say the NPC gets a randomized list out of all the people that signed up, and they're like, person, come out of the crowd and stand on your podium, and it's just a yell, and person gets up on the podium, and then there's a global shout that goes out, and you get the dialogue that pops up, kind of like think of like the AOE on Mad King Says. And then you get the little dialogue pop out, and you vote for person 1, person 2, or person 3.
They could even, taking the Mad King thing a little bit further, they could even do a thing where this fashion contest, fashion show, whatever you want to call it, that it happens, say, twice a day or something, or it happens, once a week on Saturdays or something. I don't know. They could have a set time for when it actually goes off. Do you know what I mean? So that players can catch it at different times or whatever.
I would say make it a weekly thing, kind of like the fishing competition. Like if we're going to be, looking at something in WoW and being like, maybe we could do this in Guild Wars 2, they have the fishing competition every Sunday.
Right.
And it's one of those things where it's like, far enough in advance that it's every Sunday. You can be like, will I make it? Okay, sign up this week.
There's definitely a concern that I'm seeing expressed in that we already live in a fantasy world. We already live in a world where resources are fairly limited, or feel limited and stringent in some respects. And so as fun as this would be, the question is, this would have to be somebody's side project, I feel like, or, I just don't think, I think that this is a fun thing that somebody could add and work on, and I wouldn't be angry to see it. I would be pleased to see it, but like them focusing on something like this just feels out of left field and not something with the resources they have that we would see.
Yeah, and I think in the end that's my stance is, I saw a lot of people commenting kind of like what you're saying, Inks, is we just don't have the resources. I agree. This is great for a game like WoW that's been around, 11 years now? 12? Like, we're not there. We still have ways to go. I think Blizzard's trying to find things to put into their game, like modes, whereas Guild Wars 2 is still putting in the standard modes of mode. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was something that Maclaine brought up in chat, is that it's kind of difficult to really justify something side project-y like this when they can't even give us information on major game modes other than next release closer to 3 months. So
it's a fun idea. I just,
given this time it just doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah, and it's fun. I just watched that thing. That seems cool. It's something I would jump in and do every once in a while, especially if there was some kind of reward I wanted out of it. But development time is a precious thing, and unfortunately.
Yeah, and like Chad's saying, there's always a problem with a streamer or YouTuber if it's like on a weekly basis, because it doesn't have to be daily or a dungeon but I'd like to see events where that would be the case, but then if everybody's voting on it, you run into that problem. But I would almost like to see fashion contests held by maybe it's ArenaNet staff that votes on it. That way it's not, Jebro, who has the bigger community? Jebro, Wooden Potatoes, Bog Otter, War Peachy, Inks, it's.
Yeah. These fashion contests, generally speaking, are very community driven as it is, right? You'll see things like this, like I just mentioned, the Spud Club is doing it. I know Aurora Peachy has done it in the past. I know that things like Pink Day in LA, they do things like this, right? Where they'll reward, but events like that are basically community driven will often do things like this. I've seen streamers and even YouTubers put out contests in the past for things like this and reward their viewers, the best dressed or the best concept or whatever. It's a cool thing, but I think it's very community driven and not necessarily a game mechanically driven thing. It would be cool if
yeah.
it would be cool if it was a community-driven thing, but you know.
And Benji just said that Rect did a Disney-themed contest recently. So
Yeah. And Atari, that like basically how they could get out of their current slump. I think the biggest thing that we kind of been hitting on in every topic: communicate.
yeah, tell us what the hell is going on.
Because yeah, we really don't know, you know, what's coming down the road. But yeah, that maybe one day we'll see fashion dungeons. Who knows? But let us look at some info on third-party tools, which, you know, for people, mods, yeah. Oh boy. You know, like DPS meters, stuff like that. Like, you know, we've been allowed access to them. You know, they said it was okay with stipulations. And this week on Reddit, they brought up just being careful with certain ones that you're using. Yeah, already people are beating me to it. So apparently the developer for the BGDM, a third-party Guild Wars 2 DPS meter, feels the proper invisible health bars should be shown at all times. And unfortunately, Arena has come out. Chris Cleary, risk analyst, sorry, actually came out and just kind of basically just shot that idea down with the response of, I understand this isn't going to be a popular opinion, as those that like more viability in their UI will no doubt enjoy the addition. However, taking the initiative yourself to make a post saying that this is what ANET should do. Ooh, this is like that parent talking, like, you know you're in trouble right now. So what ArenaNet should do to gamer support for a feature, or garner support for a feature you know is in violation of the rules, is going to attract my attention. You have Chris Cleary's eyes upon you. What are you going to do? But basically, you know, be careful when you're using this is the best way to, because I know a lot of people have responded like, oh, they can't track you, but do you really want to gamble with your account? I know I don't, but
so this is a pretty, go ahead, Jim.
I've never really, like, I liked when they added the in-game DPS meter in the Golem in the squad test area, but I don't know, something like this, I kind of understand the distinction he's making. It's kind of a fine distinction, but he's allowing, they've stated that they're allowing the polling of transitional data, like a state change, like you have gained or lost X amount of health, you have gained a condition or boon for X number of seconds. And in the add-on itself, that means you have to do a little bit of logic control there to try and figure out what the actual state of your character is. There is a way, apparently, in the API to just literally say, what is your state, to an entity in the game and get the information that way. And he said that's not permitted. You have to poll the transitional data, the change of state, not the direct state. I kind of get that, in that it kind of opens up, I don't know if polling the direct state of an entity allows gear checks, allows trait checks, allows achievement point checks. It's kind of one of those things where I was in World of Warcraft with the heyday of gear score. I had people asking me for raid tier gear score when I was gearing up in regular dungeons. And I don't want to see that come to Guild Wars 2. And, you know, people can ask you to link X number of insights. They can ask you to link achievements. But we all know you can just Google something and find the chat code for that. It's not difficult. A bunch of stuff shows up on Dolphy, and you can query the chat code for that. And you can just paste it in chat to look at something. So it's not super difficult in my head to see the direction that would go. Is you point your little utility at a character's name, and it's just like, oh, well, no, you can't raid with us because you're not running a meta build. Mm-hmm. And that becomes, like, even you get to a point where you get an add-on that does a rundown, and it highlights the people who are not running meta or have exotic gear in red in your raid roster, and you don't even have to say anything. You just have to kick them. Like, that's not cool. And I like the fact that that doesn't exist, and I like the fact that Chris Cleary and ArenaNet are making that distinction. They are very specifically stating that the only add-ons they are currently permitting is the tracking of transitional data for creating a DPS meter. Like, they want you to track combat data, and that's it. And I'm okay with that.
And it is important to note, since Chris Cleary did post it, the developer has separated the functionalities into two parts: the terms of service compliant version and the non-terms of service compliant version. Which I would recommend doing the first one, just in case.
It's so funny that there's a non-TOS compliant version. It's just anyway. It's interesting because I like the feature that this was trying to provide. I do. I like it a lot. I like the feature of showing an enemy's health bar, its exact, health bonus, and I like those features. But, I can also understand that ArenaNet doesn't want that to be part of a DPS meter, that it's not supposed to be part of the meter. The BGDM, unfortunately, was out of compliance for some time, not just because of things like that, but also because it still has gear check, which you just have to change 2 lines of code in order to activate. I'm not really sure why that hasn't been removed before then, or before now, or at an earlier time. I'm not really sure why that hasn't or wasn't removed. But if he's providing a TOS compliant version, fantastic. There was also this discussion where at some point, which it's now been removed, by the way, but at some point he had a note or a quote or something on his page that said, allowed by ArenaNet or something like that. I'm misquoting a bit there, I apologize, but it said something like, legal DPS meter by ArenaNet or something like that. So he removed it at the request of Chris Cleary from his page. So it does look like the creator, the developer of BGDM, is creating different functionalities. I think it's one of these things where currently users aren't getting punished for this, but the users need to be careful. They need to do a little bit of homework when using these things and make sure that the meters are compliant. I think a lot of times players will use these meters, these tools, without really doing proper research. They'll just download it because their friends are using it, their guild is using it, their group is using it, whatever. And, it can be an extremely helpful tool. It's a tool that I like. It's not a tool I use very often personally, but, in a closed group, it can be a really good thing. And this whole thing has been a mess. It's a mess of a Reddit post, really, quite honestly. There was discussion back and forth between the developer and Chris, and then other people chiming in. And the positive thing to take away from this is that I feel like the developers now have a slightly clearer picture on what ArenaNet wants you to develop and what they do not want you to develop as far as a DPS meter goes. So that's the positive that I take away from this. There's a lot of negative feelings within that thread itself, so just be forewarned when you go and read it if you haven't already, or if you haven't already followed it. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I think this is something that should have hit like front page. Like, this is something that should generate an official ArenaNet statement. This shouldn't just be something that's on Reddit. This is something that's very clearly a big thing in the community, and I don't know why there hasn't been an actual news blog post about it. Sure, it could be prefaced with, I know this is kind of a technical thing, and that, it's only going to be a certain group, a subset of our players that are looking to have a DPS meter, but this is coming back to my talk earlier about them not really having anything on the front page of guildwars2.com. This is one of those things. Because every time we've talked about DPS meters, it's been Reddit. Reddit is not GuildWars2.com.
Not that many people use these DPS meters. A fair number of people are using them. Well, certainly not in the grand scheme of things, not that many, but it is fairly popular and gaining popularity, I think.
It's
as far as them,
the raid group.
Well, even outside of raids, these are seeing popularity. Even outside of raids, these DPS meters are seeing a good deal of popularity. I think that, and they're going to become more and more popular as time goes on, I think. But there's a danger here where ArenaNet might just say, we're not going to allow them anymore. We're just kind of done with this. If creators continue to break compliance willfully, and sometimes, you know, I don't want to say maliciously because it's not the right word. I don't think it's malicious, but if some of the developers continue to willfully develop against the terms of service and provide those versions to people if they want to take that risk, which is a silly risk for your account, by the way, I could see ArenaNet sort of flipping on their stance of DPS meters being okay. And I don't know that I don't really think that's helpful for the community either.
Yeah, I agree. It's I mean, like a lot of these topics, it's a horrible balancing act. But I'm actually, I think the taco thing is still in compliance. I think the only thing that's in question is this one.
Unfortunately, not really a big fan of taco, but not for any good logical reason. But taco isn't against compliance because it reads off the API that is available. So it's a very the way that taco works is very different from the way these DPS meters work.
You don't want to talk about it?
I mean, you can talk about it if you want. I'm not a big fan of taco. Taco's an overlay. It's not a memory reader. That's like the big difference. Taco is basically like having a guy telling you stuff. Taco is like having a guy drawing stuff on your screen as you run around.
That's the one that you had to open up your combat log and have that reading, right?
Taco about it.
Yeah. That's the one that you just had to have the combat log open and it would scan that, right?
Taco?
Yeah.
Taco is just an overlay system that has a lot of different, you know.
I remember there was another DPS meter before the big official announcement where you would just have it running and then you would have your combat log open in chat and it would read the text.
Taco's not a DPS meter. It's an overlay system.
Okay.
Allows you to place icons. So let's say Super Adventure Box, which just ended. There was Taco overlays to sort of show you where the traps are, where the good jump locations were, and stuff like that. It's not something that I really like, but it's kind of like, let's pretend you had two monitors where you were tabbing in and out, even if you only have one monitor, and you're looking at, say, like a guide from Dolphy. It's not that, it is different, but it's not that different from looking at a guide to just having it overlaid on your screen. There
was something similar to that was put out in World of Warcraft, that it basically triangulated data and it drew 2D looking markers, or 3D looking 2D markers on your screen of where like boss attacks would hit, where you need to stand for a safe location, stuff like that. Is that basically what it was? Like it would place a marker on your screen for like stand here, jump from here to here, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of. But it reads from the API. It doesn't. It's not. It doesn't read the memory of the game in any way.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's the two versions. I mean, I'm not gonna suggest doing the non-TOS. I prefer keeping my account just in case. But if you want to gamble for it, go for it. But there is a compliant version,
by the way. Arc DPS, which I've seen a couple of people talk about, The UI is, it's an opinion obviously, but the UI isn't quite as nice. But Arc has their legal version and they have a not so legal version, let's say.
The risque version.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're all fans of Guild Wars 2 here. Maybe you want to get some swag, so next time you're out and about, you can let other people know you're a Guild Wars 2 fan. So, WeLoveFine is having a Guild Wars 2 sale. It's 15% off Guild Wars 2 merchandise when you use the promo code SAF2017, and that is till April 30th. And like I keep saying, if you're watching this on YouTube, links are always in the description for all that kind of stuff. But are you guys gonna consider getting anything from WeLoveFine? Because we've talked about it in the past. They've, you know, that's kind of that community created stuff, and also arena created stuff, and you know, a lot of cool things from it. But
I'm really definitely considering grabbing something. I'm kind of surprised that nobody in the Fan Forge did a Revenant shirt, because there isn't an official Revenant shirt.
I was just gonna say, I'll buy when I see my Revenant shirt added. Which I'm moving away from anyway. But man, I can't believe. I think that's I think it's just an oversight, really, but it's a funny oversight, you know.
awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna consider it, because yeah, it doesn't even like the people that kind of created it get like a kickback of it, so you know, it helps them a little bit. And
who? I'm sorry.
Doesn't the person that actually creates it get a little bit of a kickback when it's?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Like I'm not thinking it's like 50-50, but it's. I'm sure they get some kind of.
Yeah, I don't know what the cut is for the if you buy something from like an original piece.
But yeah, well, see, Max Stats, you're saying you don't like to overpay just for things with the license. 15% off, that kind of takes care of it. There you go. There's no reason not to. So I can't wait to see your tweet of you getting that box from them. So, but let's move away from physical swag to digital. So this week we got some more Gemstore stuff. This stuff, I mean, actually we got an update of hair and new hair accessory colors, and you can see them right there. And always thank you to Dolphy.net. Check out Dolphy.net for make sure you're spending your gems more wisely. So we have here, you can see I'm probably gonna butcher that first name, Tishan. I don't know colors, but deep gray, icy wine, midnight teal, peacock, and sea breeze for both the hair colors and hair accessory colors. So I know a lot of people have kind of wanted new hair colors. I know people are still hoping for more hairstyles. Hopefully those are in the works, ideally. But are you going to be changing up your hair colors on any of your characters?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's always the hardest thing for me, is I have my character's look.
I'm trying to think if I can even see the hair on any of my characters. I don't think I can, so.
Make my Nord, wow. I've been sorry about that. I've been playing Skyrim and stuff. My Norn's hair and beard color the same. Just slightly off-colored of a blonde. It's slightly annoying.
It's cheaper to cut your hair IRL than in-game. That's funny.
True story.
Boy. I don't even do that IRL, so I'm not doing it in-game.
Yeah, you can't do these from the character select, but if you make a character and have one of the total makeover kits, or like any of the things that change those specific appearance options, you can do so. But
I think it's fun when you get new hair colors. New accessory colors is sort of a new thing. We hadn't really seen those change in a long time until kind of recently, which is fantastic. But I think that people get way more excited when there's a new hairstyle. So releasing color with style at the same time, I think, really gets people more interested in these things, generally speaking. There's discussion about tattoos as well. And the tattoos are very limited in the game. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen more tattoos added since launch, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Guardians
don't think we've seen much more, if at all.
Guardians get a more healer-focused spec for the next expansion. They get armor that is just tattoos.
Well, that goes
Just
back to the
tattoo
Guild
armor.
Wars 1 monk. Yeah. I'll be all for it. But I know this next thing that's out there probably had one person scrambling through the trading post. You can get the Primordis dyes. You can see the colors there: bloody red, sunfire, lava, scorched, destroyer orange, magma, and incandescent.
Some of these are very nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's the standard 125 for one kit, which it gives you a chance of having those in there, of course, as always. And then I think it's like 5 for 500, 25 for 2500.
Yeah, my two favorites are Bloody Red and Destroyer Orange out of the set. I don't like the way that this is no surprise, but I don't like the way that the dye kits work. I don't like that. You have, what is it, a 1 in 25 shot of getting, or 6 in 25 shot of getting one of the exclusive ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's highly possible you'll spend 125 gems and get some jank dye that's worth less than 30 silver most of the time.
What was it you got when you did the Black Lion chest? You got 2 of the dye kits?
Yes, so they weren't these new dye kits, obviously, but when I opened the Black Lion chest that changed a couple of weeks ago, I got 2 uncommon drops that were like tiny dye kits, or I forget what they are currently, that equaled 33 silver. It wasn't any of the special dyes, so 2 dye kits, which would have been 250 gems for 33 silver worth of value there. I mean, just not a fan of that system.
They would work so much better if it was a random one of the 6.
Right. And at that in that case, then I would spend gems on them. I would. Because if I get let's say I get double Sunfire Lava, well, I'll keep one, and then one I can I can sell in trading post to get a different color that I want. You know what I mean? So I'm just not a fan of the way that their RNG dye system works for these colors. There's a lot of them out there now beyond the the base dyes that have existed. Yes, they are account bound. That's a small feather in their cap, but I always just try and do my best to save up gold and buy the ones that I like the most, if not all of them, from the trading post rather than spend gems on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's always our running thing is we hate the kits just because you're not guaranteed one of them. Even if you could get multiples of the same one, but it's like it's in a pool of like what other 20 of the like regular dyes in the game. I think it is.
I think it's like 25. Okay. 25 dyes in total. So 19 other dyes that are going to be things you don't want, generally speaking.
Yeah. So that's always the sad thing, to buy it from the Gemstore, but like they're saying, you can get them through the trading post, which probably will be the optimal way if you want to avoid RNG. But you will be paying, money for or gold for it.
Lots of gold.
So I guess we already know the answer to Inks, but I guess Malthanis, have you gotten any of the other dyes of these dyes?
I will never buy these.
Because you don't like the colors, or another reason?
Generally speaking, for 2 reasons. One we just talked about, the whole roulette nature of them. I don't want to spend 125 gems on a maybe value of something. At least if I buy Black Lion keys, I like the stuff that's in the Black Lion chest, aside from the Tomes of Knowledge. Second, I kind of view dyes as a secondary thing for me. I don't sell unidentified dyes, I use them. And then if I get nothing, I salvage it for pigments, because I haven't leveled up scribing yet, so I'll have pigments for when I start working on that. But I kind of like the idea of steadily filling up all the dyes that I don't have. Plus, there's the off chance that I'll get like Celestial or black and have a bunch of extra gold. So I kind of like I like the RNG nature of unidentified die that I get as a drop from like PvP or from PvE. I'm okay with that. But this system, I'm never ever going to spend gems on this.
Yeah,
Right.
that's.
And I think, like, I would love to see the metrics on maybe not Black Lion chests, because I'm scared on how profitable those things really are. Insanely profitable, I'm sure. But I would love to see the metrics on these Primordius dies, Shadow Kit dies, whatever. I would love to see the metrics on those and see how well these really do for them. I know plenty of people who do buy them, who do take a chance, but I just feel like if they made the system better, they would sell even more of them.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
I would be more than happy to save 600 or 700 gold and buy directly from the Gemstore with real cash if the system was better than it is, you know?
But then that's gonna screw with the whole fashion dungeons, because then it'll be pay to win. Right? That's how it works, right? No, okay. But besides the new stuff, they did bring back some returning items, and we can see right here the whole slew of them. You got Belinda's Greatsword skin for 600 gems, and that's till Monday. The Wizard hat, which is 200 gems, and that's till Tuesday. The Crystalline Dragon Wings backpack and glider combo for 700 gems till Tuesday. And the Shadow Die kit, which is till Tuesday for 125 gems, 5 for 500, 25 for 2500. But
and if you get Shadow Abyss, congratulations, you get the jackpot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How much is Shadow Abyss worth now? It used to be worth a lot.
Yeah, when it first came out,
it's not much anymore.
It probably did go down, but it's probably still the big ticket item because it's, you know, even darker.
Yeah, 423 gold. It's worth a decent amount.
But will you be guys picking up any of these returning items, or would you recommend any of these to anyone?
Depending on how you feel about gliders and winged backpacks. Now, winged backpacks I'm not necessarily a fan of just because of how large they are. Personal preference, you know, it's going to vary per person. As far as the glider goes, it's a nice glider. The wings flap and it's very cool looking. I'm not offended at all by the price of 700 gems for a backpack glider combo, even if I focus on the glider mostly. Belinda's Greatsword, it's a nice skin, but I feel like when these things come back into the Gemstore, they should be on sale and not for sale. It would have been nice if this was 10% off or 15% off. The Wizards hat, a lot of people are going to want. They're going to be very happy with it. I was extremely lucky to be playing the game when this was free, so it's cool. People are mentioning that it like erases your hair like most of the hats do.
Yeah.
I have no idea why that happens. It's a coding thing probably, but there you go.
Model location, clipping, and stuff. I know I have the Guild Wars 2 Celebration hat, the baseball cap with the original logo, and that nixes your hair too. So I'm probably going to get the wings and the backpack. I don't know if I'll use the backpack, but the wings are pretty friggin' awesome. So I'm
yeah,
going to end up using that. I don't know who I'm going to use it on,
Everyone.
but no.
There you go. Mithrin is saying that hair and hats use the same model slot, so that's why it erases it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
They can and have in the past put on a helmet slot with hair. The Duena's headpiece adds a different. It's not your hairstyle; it's its own thing. But technically, there you go.
And I do want to warn with the other with the Shadow Die kit, it's similar to the new one that we were just talking about, where it's from a pool of like regular in-game dies and then those ones. And like Chad's saying, you can't get those in one of the birthday years. I think the third or fourth one had the Shadow Abyss dies, like a set, and then I think you got you deliberately got the pick one.
Second one.
Oh, the second?
Yeah,
okay.
the second one.
So that's also an option of if you're considering like maybe you only want one and maybe you're nearing your second birthday on one of your characters or
I think it's fourth birthday and up.
Okay.
gets one of those, I think.
Oh, is it the same kit? Okay, I thought it was different each time.
It is different. Your 3rd birthday and 4th birthday are different kits.
Okay.
They have a different selection of die kits available in it, and I think the Shadow die kit is part of your 4th birthday kit.
Okay. Yeah, and like Chad's saying, that kind of covers the 2 most expensive ones is Timey's die set, which isn't available but is an option, and then the birthday kits. But yeah, I would probably recommend the Crystalline Dragon Wings backpack glider combo. And like we said, do note that it is a back piece as well as a glider, not just one or the other. I kind of agree with Inks. Like, Belinda's Greatsword's nice and all. It's a cool skin. Like, if that's gonna complete your look, you know, go for it. If you can do the gems, but it's I personally felt like that would have been like an in-game thing since it was even like a side character. But Wizards hat I was around when it was free. When they actually were trying the festival hat thing, and they scrapped that real quickly. But yeah, other than that, we do have a little bit of our own community news, and I hope Max Dads is still here, because I know throughout the week he was talking about it, and even on the show when we were talking about, you know, Jebro's, you know, the Team Unity Discord. Well, you guys asked back in episode 100 if we would do a community Discord, and we have finally got together. Now, it's not named after Talking Skritt or anything, because the idea behind it is we're going to, you know, it's for a place to play any and all games together, not just Guild Wars 2, but, you know, of course, people here play Guild Wars 2, but on occasion, we play other games from time to time. Anyone can enter, but you'll probably notice that regulars can move through all the channels apart from a couple, like some of the locked stream ones, in case we have like a streamer that wants to do, you know, a private one and doesn't want to get ransacked by people. But majority of them are open. To become a regular, you have to reach level 3 on the Discord channel, which will grant you regular status. And we actually name the Discord channel is Metal Splinter. It's a code name. It's kind of like a placeholder, like what is it, Project Natal was, and Project Scorpio. This is Project Metal Splinter.
We had no idea what to call it, so we just kind of threw something with that.
So.
The truth comes out.
Yeah. But and if you look on there, I think right now we just have it set up for like kind of like general, like a lobby thing. Then we have a couple games in there. I think for right now we have ESO, Guild Wars 2, WoW. Because I was kind of going off of the people that I've seen in chat previously that have played other games. And of course we can always add more. That's not like an issue. Especially once Discord adds, you know, the ability to group things, then I'll add like freaking every game. I'll go onto Twitch and start going, add them all. No, I won't, but you know. But we're just trying to keep it at least a little bit less congested, because probably when you see it, you'll see a lot of chat channels and voice channels. So, but
which is in development. I talked to some of the Discord devs at PAX East that the video chat, I think, is soon trademark. It's in internal testing at the very least for video chat there. And then I know they might have I know they pushed back channel grouping, but it's still in development. It was just, I think it was pushed back for the video chat for it. So.
And if you're wondering why we kind of kept the regular status as like a level 3 thing, it's kind of to also deter, like kind of protect the people that are, you know, regulars to Talking Skritt, and what if we do more in the community and whatnot. You know, that way someone can't just run in and start screaming into your ear if you're in a, you know, private channel or something. So, you know, we're doing it because we love you.
Oh, damn, you're so sweet to our viewers.
Yeah. we'll throw that out here, and if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll probably start putting the Discord link into the description as well, going, here on out. But that's it for this week. Jim, where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter at MalthanusMMO. You can now find me here on twitch.tv/TalkingSkrit again, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Zero to Hero PvP night. Finally, I've missed 3 weeks due to lack of a CPU, but hopefully my new computer can handle it a hell of a lot better, and I can play on non-potato quality. Hope to see y'all there.
Don't say that like it's an insult. We got a host from One Potato. Jeez.
Whoops.
There goes that. First the New Egg sponsorship, and now that. Oh. And Inks, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at MMOinks. Some more ecto gambling videos coming out since everybody loves those.
Oh.
And we'll see. We'll see when we get some news to talk about stuff. Hopefully soon. I hope. Please.
That's awesome.
Dear
Fantastic.
God, please give us something to talk about.
Yeah, agreed. And you can find me at simply_day on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Gonna get back into the back catalog of the D&D sessions I have that I usually play on Saturdays. Probably gonna be doing that around 8 tonight on my own personal channel, simply_day, all that stuff. If you're just popping in, you can find us. This will go up on YouTube. Just search Talking Skritt, usually the first one that pops up. If you're watching this on YouTube, and we're probably going to cut out that middle bit that you probably have no clue about. So if you want to see that stuff live and the little goofiness of all that stuff, you got to tune in live. Just twitch.tv/TalkingSkrit every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And I do want to say, want to get better at doing this again. Thank you for the people that host us, that Chevron, Sundora, and One Potatoes. And as always, we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.